Hello everyone, welcome back to Let's Talk with Tom. My name is Tom, and what are ships? Why ship? Who are we shipping? What are we shipping? What, when, why, how, and where are we shipping? Today we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about ships. We're going to talk about it because that's what this show is about. We don't just talk about cartoons, we talk about stuff alongside cartoons, adjacent to it. Nothing's off limits. We talk about anything on this show. It's called Let's Talk. Nothing's off limits here. Let's talk about my vasectomy. So, I'm sure many of you have watched a show at some point, and you're like, hey, this is pretty good. And then you're like, hey, I'm gonna go online and find like-minded people here who like the same things I like. Then you go on Twitter, you go on Tumblr, you go on wherever. That's when you discover fandoms. And for some people, that's the point where they're like, man, I'm questioning my love for this thing now. And that's fine. You know, that's fine. Sometimes that happens. It's part of the game. It's part of life, you know? And I've talked about fandoms on the show before. And even though I talked about a lot of things that make fandoms toxic, I didn't talk about one thing that is very prevalent in a lot of fandoms that a lot of people really don't like, and some people really like, and that's shipping. I don't think I need to explain what shipping is, but just for the outsiders who don't know what it is, basically when you take two fictional characters, I hope they're fictional, because if it's in real life it's a little weird, please don't do that. You take two fictional characters and then you're like, hey, I'd like to see them in a relationship with one another. Sometimes it's romantic, sometimes it's even platonic, but you want to see them in a relationship, and that's called shipping. Shipping is derived from the word relationship. And you can have all kinds of relationships, but primarily it's the romantic kind. There's shipping in just about every fandom, especially when it comes to animation. There's tons of ships all across the sea. You know, if you look at Steven Universe, there's shipping. You look at Star versus the Forces of Evil, there's definitely some shipping going on there. But you know what I want to talk about today is I want to be objective, I want to be valid. I don't really like shipping. I've never cared about shipping. It's never been something that really interests me. It's just relationships in general. I'm like, I don't really care. That's why I'm single now. And also because my social circle hasn't expanded at all in the last several years, but that's not important right now. I just never really cared about shipping. In fact, I kind of didn't like it because I was like distanced from it. So I was like, I saw like all the really toxic stuff and I'm like, oh geez, why even bother shipping? But that's what I want to talk about today. I want to discuss it objectively. I want to say, you know, is this a valid way of analyzing text? Because, you know, I analyze text. That's what we're doing. We're analyzing the media that we consume. And the question we're asking is shipping a valid way of analyzing that media? I just want to look at popular ship real quick, and we're just gonna check off some boxes. Now, I think that shipping can easily be more than just a bunch of hormonal teenage girls who haven't grown up yet and don't know any better. I think it can be a valid way of looking at the way a story is playing out, looking at the characters, analyzing the relationships between them. I think it can be valid. 100%. I don't think that there's a problem with it. At least not as far as that goes. But that's why we're going to take a look at Starco. And we're going to ask, how much does this add and how much does this take away? How much good does this do and how much bad does it do? So we're going to look at Starco and we're going to ask, does it add to the interpretation of the show? Does it add to the story? Does it help interpret the story? And does it add to the experience that people have with the show? Does it make the viewing experience better? Does it make it worse? And we're just gonna go down the line with all those things. I will say, yeah, it can definitely add to the experience of the show. I think that between Star and Marco, there's a lot of really good chemistry. Honestly, I mean, I'm not necessarily saying that's a romantic chemistry, but there's chemistry there for sure. In a case where you are friends with someone who is a gender who the two of you are mutually attracted to the genders that you are, I think everyone's been there in a point where, you know, they had feelings for the other person. They're kind of wishing like, man, I don't want to be just friends with this person. I wish that I could be more than friends with this person, but also I don't want to say that because I don't want to ruin the friendship I have with this person because I genuinely care about them. Like, it's a whole thing. It is. It's a whole thing. So, like, the fact that you can look at fiction and see two characters who are in a similar position, it's relatable. It makes you feel better. It makes you feel like your situations are valid. It makes you feel like you're not alone. So I'd say, yeah, the ship in that sense definitely adds to the experience for a lot of people. And then does it add to the interpretation of the show? When interpreting the show, does it add to it? And I think Yeah, maybe, but I think it's more in the sense that it's very simple, it's very broken down in the case of Starco, where it makes it easier in the future for people who are younger or maybe aren't so used to trying to figure out where a story is going. And it kind of acts like muscle memory, and you kind of learn like, okay, these are some of the beats that you hit along the way. And you can kind of start learning how to predict what's going to happen in a show based on something that's following the same formula, but a very simple formula. Because let's be honest, the possibility of... Because let's be honest, I don't think that anyone's watching Star versus the Forces of Evil and is questioning whether or not Marco and Star are going to get together. I think everyone's like, yeah, they're going to get together. And then my third point of does it add to the story? I'd say so. Because the most important part of telling any story is to get people invested. And people are certainly invested in Starco. So, as a result, they're more interested in the story of Star as a whole. So, free for free so far, in favor of shipping. That means shipping's all good, right? Well, not exactly. Yes, this is evidence that shipping certainly has value. But we're not done yet. On the topic of experience, the way people champion Starco over Tomco or Jacko or Tom Star or whatever else is something that might go a bit too far sometimes. You know, you got over-the-top fan fiction, which is involving kids, by the way. Like, I mean, I know they're, like, technically teenagers, but those are still kids. Writing about them doing things is kind of gross. You got hostility towards anyone who might not want to see Starco happen, which, like, it's perfectly reasonable to not want to see Starco happen. Some people, they just think it's predictable that it's gonna happen, so they don't want it to happen because they don't want a show that they like to be predictable. And, like, that's understandable. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I get where they're coming from, and you can disagree respectfully without, you know, attacking them for going against your ship, because your ship isn't that important, I'm sorry. Which, overall, hostility with shipping is a big reason why people aren't in favor of it. I'm sorry, my trap was injured the other day, and right now it's really bugging me. So I'm having trouble concentrating on this. And this is like an important video. And then interpretation can be a bit warped when you have this investment in one specific pairing getting together. For example, with me, I'm just kind of on the bandwagon of like, yeah, Starco's gonna happen. But that kind of got in the way of me realizing like, there's no confirmation at any point in the series where we see that Marco has any feelings for Star. Like, there's implication, but there's nothing explicitly saying beyond the subtext. Congratulations! And in my head, like, part of me was like, wait, there hasn't? That's my own confirmation bias. So in that sense, it can warp your interpretation of a show, and it can lead you to either purposely or subconsciously misinterpreting something in order to favor your ship. You'll have a confirmation bias in favor of the thing that you're shipping. And as far as the story, the way it goes is either Starco's gonna happen and a lot of people are gonna be happy, and then some people are gonna be like, ah man, it's predictable, or it won't happen, and there are probably going to be a lot of people who support Starco, who as a result of it not happening are going to be going after the writers, or at least I hope that this isn't the case, but this is usually what happens. For example, with Lauren Zook on Steven Universe, when she started apparently queerbaiting and hinting at Lapidot getting together, or basically kind of writing it in there, but harassing her on social media because your ship isn't happening, because you wanted Amethyst and Peridot to get together. At the end of the day, it's like she's just doing her job. When people can't do their jobs because people are too invested in their ship, that's a problem. That's an effect on the story where people will be upset over the fact that their ship didn't happen. And like, you're not helping anything. You're not accomplishing anything by doing that. And if anything, I think it's a really toxic mindset that a creator or a writer or a storyboarder owes you anything in telling a story beyond maybe like a payoff, but there's no reason why you should feel entitled to your ship happening in canon. And I'm sure if Starco never happens in Star vs. the Forces of Evil, there will be at least a minority of people who are upset and feel entitled to Starco happening, when in reality it doesn't need to happen. If it happens, that's awesome, but if it doesn't, you're not entitled to what you want happening in a show to happen, you know what I mean? And that's why a lot of times toxic fandoms can sometimes be associated with shipping, because we went over all of this in my other fandom video. False sense of ownership, all that type of stuff. It's very present in shipping. What I think everyone can agree on, regardless of your position on shipping, is that shipping has a lot of drawbacks for the communities around the media that we consume. But what's important is understanding is that when it's not a toxic thing, shipping can be a valid way of discussing that media. The point of this video isn't to look at something like shipping as just black and white. There's nuance to it. You can genuinely analyze a show or a book or anything based on ships. It's a device, it's a way to interpret. But what's important, and I think people in these communities can agree with me on this, is not to go overboard. Not to believe that your ship is the most important thing in the world. It's more important than my life. I think it's important to realize that at the end of the day, all we're doing is, and I said this in my fandom video, media is a way to escape from life. We watch TV and we watch movies and cartoons to escape from the stress and toxicity that we experience in the real world. So why make a community around these things and then bring all that bullshit in there? And it's especially stupid if you're going to ruin a real life friendship or relationship with someone over the fact that you don't agree on a ship. Like, it's kind of ironic. Don't bully or harass people just because they don't want to see the same fictional people end up in a relationship together. You know, just be nice. Be understanding. And if you have a ship that you're really passionate about and someone disagrees with you, just disagree. Like, you don't need to be hostile over it. Just explain your position. If you think it's problematic, explain why you think it's problematic, and leave it at that. You know, you can't control how people feel. You can't control people's tastes and opinions. You can't make anyone think or feel the same way as you. Anyways, I think that's all I got to say about this. I'm gonna go ice my trap because it's in pain. Thank you for watching Let's Talk with Tom on the Roundtable, but Tom isn't just on the Roundtable. I have my own self-titled personal channel. I have a Twitter, I have an Instagram, I have a Snapchat, I have all that good stuff. In fact, I even have a Tumblr. So, if you're interested in any of that, check that out, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye!